Have you ever accidentally saved a life? I was heading to my car after work when I noticed this older guy struggling to carry his groceries across the parking lot. Honestly, I was exhausted and just wanted to get home, so I pretended not to see him. But then I watched him drop everything. Milk carton burst open, apples rolling everywhere. Nobody stopped to help. The poor guy looked so defeated trying to pick everything up with shaky hands. I felt terrible, so I jogged over and started helping him collect his stuff. As I knelt down to pick up some oranges that had rolled under a car, I noticed his hands. They were shaking badly, not just from age, but something else. His knuckles were white as he gripped a small paper bag that hadn't fallen. "Thank you," he said, with this weird intensity to his eyes, like I'd done something much bigger than just help with groceries. His name was Frank. It started to drizzle, and he mentioned his apartment was a few blocks away. The rain was getting heavier, and he didn't have a jacket. "I could drive you," I offered, surprising myself. In my car, Frank kept glancing at me like he was making sure I was real. "You're very kind," he said quietly. "Not many people would stop." "It's nothing," I answered, feeling uncomfortable with his gratitude. "Which way?" During that short drive, he asked about my job, my day, and my life. Not in a creepy way, but like he was starving for conversation. So I told him about my promotion at work and how I was supposed to be celebrating that night. "Big plans?" he asked. "Not really. Probably just takeout and Netflix." He nodded like he understood completely. When we pulled up to his building, he hesitated before getting out. It was pouring now, and the thought of him walking alone into that empty-looking building made my chest tight. "There's a diner next door," he said, pointing to the neon sign. "I could use some coffee if you want to join me." I don't know why I invited him. Maybe because he reminded me of my grandpa who'd passed last year. Or maybe it was how his eyes lit up when I asked, like I'd offered him gold instead of mediocre diner coffee. The place was nearly empty. Just us and an elderly couple in the corner. Frank ordered coffee and pie for both of us, insisting on paying. "Small thanks for the rescue," he said with the first real smile I'd seen from him. He asked what I did for work, and I told him about my job in marketing. Nothing exciting, but he listened like it was the most fascinating story he'd ever heard. "I was a history teacher," he mentioned casually, "for 40 years at Roosevelt High. What started as a quick coffee turned into 3 hours of conversation." Frank knew everything about the Civil War, told stories about the 60s like he'd lived them yesterday, and had this way of explaining complex things that made them click in my brain. "Can I give you my phone number?" he asked carefully, like he expected me to say no. "In case you ever want another history lesson." I surprised myself again by saying yes. Even more surprising, I actually called him the following week. We met at the same diner, same booth. It became our thing. 6 months later, Frank got sick. It started with chest pains during one of our coffee meetups. His face went pale, and I rushed him to the ER. 3 days in the hospital with pneumonia. Sitting by his bed on day 2, he gripped my hand with surprising strength. That's when he made a confession that shook me to my core. That day in the parking lot wasn't an accident. He'd been planning to end things that night, had everything ready at home. Pills, a letter, everything. He said he'd been alone since his wife dies, and nobody had spoken to him in weeks. The grocery trip was just to buy food for his cat, so she wouldn't starve after he was gone. He told me that simple act of helping with his groceries made him feel human again. That I didn't just drive him home that day, drove him back to life.